Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Not Just Revenue. First of all, an apology because last week's episode uploaded, published, 4 people got to listen to it, and then it unpublished itself. Don't know what happened, so I've just republished that. And this one will go out today as well. So there you go. And if you're watching on YouTube, I do apologise for my appearance. I promise you I am washed and clean, but it is, we're in the heat wave. So it's been 30 degrees the last 2 days. It's going to be like 31 today. This episode, I want to talk to you about a client. I want to talk to you specifically about her experience working with me because she recently shared some really exciting news, which made my heart explode. So that's what I want to talk to you about today. Now, I'm not going to be mentioning any names because obviously with the work I do, and this like small business community, people know people. I don't like to necessarily share all the details. And because I'm getting into a lot of details with this episode, I'm not going to be sharing their name or their business. I'm just going to be I'll give you the context and kind of the information that you need, but the rest of it is going to be like completely anonymized. So this client ultimately came to me because she knew that she was making enough money. Like on paper, she had business expenses, personal expenses, and was like, well, okay, great. I'm making enough pretty consistently now, but I never feel like I have enough. I'm always, dipping into the business. I'm dipping into savings. And so there's a phrase that I hear so often, which is, I start the month with good intentions, but then something happens, right? And it doesn't have to be anything dramatic. Usually it's just that like life was more expensive than you thought. And it'll be because you don't have an intentional spending habits or structures that are built into your money management system yet. But sometimes life just is more expensive, okay? It's why I actually all my clients build a breathing fund, which is like a £1,000 pot that is literally there just for breathing room, because life is expensive. And sometimes we do get our estimates wrong. And sometimes we do have bad mental health months and we just spend more because our body is craving dopamine hits. And where do we get dopamine nowadays? By buying things. So that is where this client was. Okay. She knew that on paper she was making enough money. So for a bit of context, she was bringing in terms of profit, around 3,000 to 3,500 per month. It was pretty consistent. The type of business she had meant that she had clients on retainer. And so this was like pretty guaranteed income for the foreseeable future. But the core tension was that on paper, everything looked fine. But day to day, she felt like she was scrambling. So we worked together. We actually worked together over an intensive, like 1-to-1. So it was like 5 weeks, I want to say. And honestly, her transformation in these 5 weeks was incredible. But it was it's the same thing anyone can achieve if they have the resources, that they know they're making enough money, but they just don't know how to manage it. Okay, it's such a perfect example of what can happen if you have the structure behind your finances. So one of the first things I always get all of my clients to do is to complete a financial audit. No matter which offer you come into, the first thing you're always going to do, I don't care if you're working with me because you want to start your business. I don't care if you're working with me because you've got a multi-6-figure business. I'm going to get you to do the same thing. And that is a financial audit. And this is where you reviewed 3 to 6 months worth of spending and essentially work out how much you are actually spending. Because 9 times out of 10, we are spending more than we thought. And that is exactly what was happening here. Okay. So this client thought she was spending around £500 a month. That's what she was putting in her budget. Okay. When she was doing a budget, she'd put down £500 a month. That seems fine. go through the month and thinking, yeah, I probably spent around £500. I see this all the time. She did her financial audit. And this is absolutely no shade, no shame to this person. Like, so many clients are doing this. Actual spending for June, this is a couple of years ago now, we worked together, was 1,800, and in July was 1,100. She thought she was spending £500, and she was spending more than double that just on other things, okay? Things that I classify as joyful spending. Now, I classify joyful spending as essentially anything above your necessities, okay? Like your kind of cost to live, right? That's necessities, but anything above that. And the reason why I call them joyful spending, it actually ties back to when I first started money coaching. And a lot of the clients I was working with did have problems around overspending. And so I wanted to kind of initiate this reframe around what you're spending money on. And that actually, when you spend money on something that isn't a necessity, that is a choice. And so how can we make better choices to live a more joyful life? And actually, like, what do we find joy in? And is actually probably a lot less than we think it is. And that ultimately, that is where the financial stress was all coming from. Because if you think you're spending £500 a month, but actually you're spending over double that, well, that's where all your money has been missing. Okay, but you've just not been tracking it. This is the problem, is no one has been tracking it or looking at it because it feels like a really big task. And it also feels quite confronting. I think that's why, like, a lot of people, when they work with me, like, they do so because they know they need someone else there. They need someone to hold them accountable. And I get that because there is so much shame and guilt and anxiety attached to money and how we manage it. Suddenly, it takes away that personal responsibility, right? Because I'm no longer getting the numbers for me. I'm getting the numbers for my coach. Like my money coach needs to know my numbers, and so I'm doing it for them, not for me. You get to almost like offhand that personal responsibility a little bit, which just can help. It just can help because, yeah, otherwise you wouldn't do it yourself because there's that shame attached. Because, I mean, this client, she probably knew deep down what the issue was, is that she was spending more than she had kind of allocated or thought was spending. But that's quite confronting because when you are stuck in that cycle of overspending, and I'm defining it as overspending because she wanted to spend around 500 and was spending more than that. Now, I actually get her to spend more money with, like, she has a much higher joyful spending budget when we redo her budget. But under that definition, she was overspending, right? When we are overspending, we know deep down it's not sustainable. We know that it's derailing our financial goals. We also know that it's the reason why we're stressed. But we also really like all the things that we spend money on. This past month has been, so from a personal point of view, we have spent so much more money this month than we have in months. And that's because beginning of this year, my business was in like a slower sales period, which is fine. Money ebbs and flows throughout our lives. It's also just the nature of business. It is economic cycles. Basically, it's fine. But in those periods, we're obviously being a bit more careful with what we're spending because there wasn't excess money there. Whereas this last month, I've had one of my highest months of the year so far. And it's just people paid in full. It was just great. And so to celebrate that, I decided, you know what, after so many months of not really having much personal joyful spending money, I'm going to basically add money into the family pot and I'm going to treat us and we're going to go for meals out. I desperately needed new shoes. I was wearing these like old pair of Vans and like just watching the sole like would get smoother and smoother. And I was like, right, I'm going to buy all the new shoes. And I wanted to buy, me and my partner love having, we're really gay. We really love having like matching shoes. Like as a family, we like having matching shoes. Previously it was Vans, but I was like, we need to get into our New Balance era. And so I was like, I'll buy you new trainers. And very quickly, the extra money that I was like, we're going to use this and celebrate and just like treat ourselves and actually spend, because we like really haven't been able to do so that much. Obviously, the holiday was like a blip in that. Okay, there was pre-planned. Yeah, that's gone. That's gone. It is so easy once you start spending for the money to disappear. But also, I like all of those things. Like, I want to be able to do that every single month. Like, I want to be able to, not necessarily, I don't need to buy new shoes every single month, but I want to have that extra money so that I can just buy whatever I want every single month. Now, the reality of that, because I have been in that situation before, and I know I'm going off on tangents, but hello, I have ADHD, so you know that. I had been in that position before last year when I was earning above what I needed consistently. It was great. I was spending a lot of money and not really thinking about it because I was like, well, the money's there. But actually, it became so easy to just already think about what I was going to spend money on, and almost like there was no, I want to say, like, thinking behind it. Like, I don't know, once you're in that of like just allowing yourself whatever you want, it's really hard to then rein it back in. And that, even that phrase, like, rein it in, feels like, oh, like, I don't want to. Like, I have worked hard for this. I want to be able to enjoy myself. I want to be able to do X, Y, Z. But the reality is, and this was this client's reality as well, is that we have financial goals that we want to achieve. And we have financial goals that are really, really deeply important to us and also to our family. So my own like current financial goal is to build back the financial security both in my business and my personal life. Okay, so I need to build my business overflow back up. I sent an email about that yesterday. And this client who came to me, she ultimately wanted to save £10,000 so that she could go on maternity leave. But she was earning this money and not able to save anything because she was constantly dipping into money, any money that she did save, because she wasn't aware of, she was kind of like putting her head in the sand around what she was spending. Now, I don't think we need to track our personal finances. Business is slightly different. But when it comes to personal finances and our spending, I don't think we need to track it. It's just unnecessary. And with the money management method that I teach, my clients don't need to track it because you have like an allocation that you put onto a spending card and that is it. Once the money's gone, it's gone, girl. So I don't think you need to track it, but I do think every now and again, especially if you notice that it's creeping up or you're noticing that actually you're feeling a bit anxious around money or like not having enough money, it's useful just to like re-audit what is happening. And it's honestly just coming at money from like a place of data. We're just looking at like the data, like on paper. What do I think I'm spending versus what am I actually spending? And then also, like, what am I spending that money on? Because most of the time it's like, oh, yeah, girl, come on. Like late last year when I was still like in this period and was like just spending really nilly, I kind of realized that I was like, I am spending so much money on clothes. And I don't even, like, I've got no bloody room. I've got no bloody room. And I just realized, I was like, why am I spending money on these clothes? Because, like, yes, okay, I like these clothes, but I don't have room for them. Half of them I don't wear. Like, I like them, but when am I actually going to wear them? I've been like in a flux of like losing weight, gaining weight, losing weight for like the last 2 years. And it's then like, well, half my clothes do fit and half of them don't fit. So why am I buying stuff for like a future me or like saving it? Like, so this person is overspending on their own, based on their own rules, but they want to save £10,000. Now they come to me like, girl, got no savings. So how the hell do I save £10,000? And I want to do this like yesterday. So this is what we did. Obviously, we did the financial audit. We then recreated her money management systems. So at the time, she was using Monzo. Now, I love to hate Monzo. I use Monzo personally, but that's because I have a very educated use of it. Every time a client comes to me and they're talking about how they struggle to manage their finances, but they feel like they should be on top of it, but they're not, it's because they have Monzo. Because they have Monzo. Girl, having some pots does not equal money management. Okay? This was this client's situation. She had the pots. Okay? She felt like she was being organized. On paper, everything looked fine. But behind the scenes, she was stressed. There was never enough money. She was scrambling. So she had these Monzo pots, and that was the first thing. I was like, girl, no, no. I teach a 3-account system, okay? This is personal finances. So you have like the hub, like bills, fixed costs. So things like automatic bills, savings that are going to be automated, like subscriptions, anything that doesn't require me to like tap in a shop to get it goes on this, like that is how much money goes on that card. Now, ultimately, your owner's pay will go into that account. That however much it needs for all those bills and subscriptions will stay in there. And then we allocate out the other bits, and we allocate out the joyful spending, we allocate out necessary spending based on the averages that she calculated in the financial audit. And we also then move out like savings and things like that as well. So this client, what we did is rather than looking at, oh, how can we get you cutting your spending down from like over £1,000 to under £500, because that just is not realistic. What I do is I always with clients is I kind of meet them where they're at, because there's no point cutting it that much because they'll struggle, they'll ultimately not do it. They might have 1 month of motivation. That's where you see people do like no spend challenges, like great, but it's not sustainable. So instead, I think we gave her a like joyful spending of around £900, just so we had a bit more room going into these savings pots and savings goals. Now, we were really intentional with the savings. We knew what the goal was. We knew what the timeline was. And then we also worked out from her monthly owner's pay, what was being allocated into there, and kind of set up this breathing fund structure so that if something did happen and she did overspend, she could dip into that rather than dip into these really specific savings goals that she wanted. We also, for this client, set up her pension and we set up her investments. We did everything because now we had structure and things were working, right? So we only worked together, yes, for 5 weeks, but in the first week, we had her financial audit and we had rebuilt her new money system and given her new budget. Okay. Week 2 is then looking at, okay, what are the savings goals? Let's get really specific, like what accounts are we going to use? And then talking about all the other kind of financial goals as well. And then we just kind of tweaked and refined throughout the rest of the week. So like, yes, we talked about business structure as well, because this client felt like she was at capacity with these retainer clients. So we were talking about how we can raise pricing or build different packages in order to increase her revenue from her business. And then obviously funnel that into these savings goals as well. I remember meeting this client in person a good few months after we worked together. So 6 months later, I met up with this client in person and she showed me her bank account and her savings account had 5 figures in it. In 6 months, because she finally had the direction, she had a realistic spending plan that allowed her to spend joyfully without restriction. Okay? 5 figures in 6 months. Now, this client also had some other like bigger savings goals. So this client at that point went on, or just before then actually, so in that 6-month period had been on a month-long holiday, like traveling somewhere Southeast Asia, I want to say. Come back, we meet up, 5 figures in savings, chef's kiss, love what you're doing. Now this client ultimately goes and gets on with her life. I go and get on with my life, serving other clients. Do you remember that savings goal that she had? The main one, the £10,000. She also, one of the big savings goals and like structure was, so she was house sitting in order to save money, like being a professional house sitter in London. So was saving money on rent that way. So we had to make sure that her budget was ready, her spending plan, her money management system was ready for when she then bought her own place or like started renting a place. So that was in the financial goals as well. But her main ultimate financial goals was £10,000 for a 5-month maternity leave. This client just had her baby. It literally lights me up, right? This client came to me being like, I don't know how I'm ever going to afford this. Like right now I'm earning this money, but like it's just going. I don't even pay rent. I don't even know where it's going. Help. To having 5 figures saved in 6 months, having been on a 1-month holiday, to having the baby, having the baby that she wanted to save for. I just think it's incredible. And the gap between that is about, okay, so we worked together in the summer of 2024. And now it's the summer of 2026. It's not quite been 2 years, but I know as well she had the baby, like, I want to say, like, a month or so ago. Like, a little while ago now. But yeah, that is this client's story. Okay, this is like the story of, I earn money. I know there should be enough money on paper, but there never is. I'm always having to dip into any savings that I make. You know, I just spend money on kind of whatever I want when I want it. In business as well, like I end up pulling from personal savings if I see that there's a business investment that I want to make. That was her situation. And now it's completely different. She knows how to spend intentionally. She knows how to manage her money. She knows how to save. And she's building wealth. In the background of all of this, her pension and investments have continued growing. So this person now has a completely financial stable life with a baby. Yeah. Anyway, I don't really have any. Sure, some people plan their podcasts. I don't. I just kind of go, I'm going to talk about this today. So yeah. In fact, client Jen, you found it interesting, and you are someone that you are like, I know that on paper I have more than enough money. I know that the money coming into my business is more than enough for what I need for my personal life. And yeah, it never feels like there's enough. I always feel like I'm scrambling. I always feel like I'm, having to make more, or I'm waiting for the next payment to hit. And I want to build wealth. I have these big financial goals. Maybe I want, to expand my family. We want to buy our forever home. I want to go on a month-long holiday every single year. Whatever your financial goal is, and there is no reason why I shouldn't be hitting this, but just the money just isn't, it's just not, money isn't moneying, okay? What's coming in isn't translating to the financial success and, stability that I have. And I'm worried about the future, am I going to have to work forever? I haven't been contributing to a pension since I was in a job. If you're thinking any of these things, I have good news, because Six Figure Safety is reopening. Probably next month, later in the month. The open doors date is TBC. But Six Figure Safety is coming back. The link is in the description of this episode, and I would love for you to join the waitlist. And I cannot wait to help you achieve your financial goals. So yeah, I will speak to you soon. Have a great day and enjoy the heat waves.